All right, everyone, we've had a machete attack up in the Burlington area. Now, first and foremost, before I get into the sum and substance of what actually happened, can I please say that this was an attack in Shelburne, not in Burlington itself. Shelburne is like a town on the fringes of Burlington. That's like saying that Winooski is Burlington. Yeah, they're basically connected, but they're a different actual place. Burlington, the city of, is different from South Burlington, Winooski, and some of these other communities, including Shelburne. So some of these places are literally reporting it from Burlington. It's just the Burlington metro area. You got to be proper. Do your fact checking. I know that a lot of people don't know anything about Vermont. Now, what happened is that an individual named Abukar Ibrahim attacked a woman after she attempted to stop him from attacking her car. I guess he had like a machete and he was like, smashing on the car, and she saw this, and she's a little old granny, like 73, and she just happened to be working for Meals on Wheels at the time, delivering food to people, so she's doing her civic duty, being a little old lady, she's like, and then she comes out and her car's being attacked, she's like, stop that, and then she gets attacked, and then he barricades himself in a room. The police have to get him out of there. Finally comes out under his own power, I guess. At the very least, he didn't attack the police when he realized the gig was up. But it's surreal, because remember, the entire state of Vermont is basically a sanctuary state, and I'm pretty sure this was a refugee. Yes, and keeping in mind, of course, apparently 30-ish year old male. Now, we were all told, of course, that it was overwhelmingly women and children that were refugees. That doesn't appear to have been the case here. Now, this is a little bit strange because all of us Vermonters were assured that there was no risk from this. Oh, don't worry, Trump is evil and bigoted and stuff. This is exactly how. Now, let's assume for a moment, and this isn't 100% statistically true, this is actually a half-truth at best. Let's assume that the leftists, when they say, well, statistically speaking, some illegal immigrant less likely to be violent than a native citizen, blah, 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 all this stuff, and it gets into a lot of nitpicking about demographics that means that it's basically not true. You can look over the statistics, they are indeed wrong. Let's assume for a second that that's true. The mere fact that people that are concerned about the issue are going to occasionally see stories like this amplified, especially in homogenized little communities like the Shelburne area, is going to convince more and more people over time that it is a problem and cause actual xenophobic attacks, even as it causes more stress on an immigrant community and thus more crime there too. Now, I've said this before, and I've said also, if a person has been forced out of their country and has come here as a refugee, most of the time, the reason that there are refugees at all is because of U.S. foreign policy. We're the big bully on the world stage of the last 20 years. We're the ones that have largely, the Bush and Obamas anyway, not the native population. I never voted to go bomb and kill anybody's kids. But Bush loved it. Obama loved it. Trump has continued some of those policies, although he's scaled back and reformulated. I hope he ends them even more. I hope as few bombs that can be dropped as possible, I see it as a good thing. Hell, if we can drop no bombs at all for a couple of years, it would be like legendary. It'd be the only years in modern history that we hadn't. It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful if we could get along in this world and people could stop being at each other's throats. But no such luck anytime recently. Probably no such luck anytime soon either. So you get refugees. They're like, well, Uncle Sam came, bombed my village, I have to be a refugee. Now I'm in Uncle Sam's land. What am I going to do? Do you think that person really is going to develop a strong sense of national pride and say, oh, well, I want to, I don't want to just be a refugee. Man, I love it here. I want to be an actual American and eat cheeseburgers. It just doesn't happen that way. Yeah, okay, if someone's like 2 years old, maybe they don't fully understand the situation, and they just know what life is like now, and they can eat the cheeseburger, and they're like, oh, cool, I can play video games and be a fat American, basically. Maybe they like it okay, but if someone's already an adult, it's not going to, they've already got an attachment to their homeland. So I believe, in all likelihood, I don't know exactly where he's a refugee from, but he's not from the state of Vermont. At first, it wasn't even clear because a lot of the outlets weren't even reporting at all. Like Phil Scott told him, please, don't report all the details. We don't want people to know this because it's a national story, and the state of Vermont, its government doesn't like to be called out for ever having problems. one thing in Vermont people from outside need to understand, that Vermonters don't like to talk about their problems, generally speaking. This is a thing with regular Vermonters too. They would rather just grin and bear it. Very long-suffering, sort of that English tradition, you could say. Long-sufferingness. Don't like to talk about negative feelings and problems. That becomes its own problem when the government engages in the same behavior. Now, some person's like, that they stub their toe and you're like, oh, how are you? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. That's not hurting anybody. But when Phil Scott and the state government don't admit that there's a problem, more of this will probably end up happening. Some state governments, they're more willing to deal with things. They'll say, well, yeah, we've got a fiscal problem, we've got a crime problem, we got this problem stuff. But in Vermont, the fact that things are generally good means that when there are a few problems like this, nobody even wants to talk about it. I'm willing to talk about it. Of course, I was technically born in New Hampshire. Maybe that's a difference. I'm joking, but, so I think that this is regrettable. And the thing is, if anybody talks out about it and says, well, why was this person here? Why wasn't this person checked? Obviously had violent tendencies. They'll say, you racist, some native citizen can do the same thing, as though being named Abukar was a race or something, which is nonsense. They'll call you out for it, but then it's like, well, so you're never going to even bother to address the problem. Because this is a preventable problem. Yeah, you can't prevent people that are already entitled to be in your state from maybe sometimes doing bad things. But you can prevent people from outside of the United States from coming in and doing that if you have proper checking, which we don't have. Now, Trump's made a big deal about, we're going to, increase the vetting process, be severe, extreme vetting. So far, has that even kicked in yet? Although, in all honesty, this person probably came in during the Obama era. That's probable, so, I think it's real regrettable. It's real regrettable that people are so screwed up about this. All you have to do is use a little common sense. If I bomb your house and then say, hey, come sleep on my floor, you're not gonna do that and be like, well, oh, I love you, you're my best friend. No, you're probably gonna have a knife behind your back when you come over because I just burned your house to the ground. It's as simple as that. So when you take in refugees from countries destroyed by U.S. foreign policy, there's going to be problems. Sorry, but it's not racial. The same thing would happen. Let's say we bombed Poland. Let's say we invaded and bombed the UK to pieces and then said, oh, we're going to take like 10 million English people, resettle them here. We're going to make them refugees, put them in the U.S., give them like welfare handouts. What do you think would happen? It's self-explanatory. I put myself in their shoes and I say, well, if some other country bombed the U.S., if some other country invaded Vermont and burned the maple trees so there was no industry and tore apart, bombed the mountains so there's no ski lifts, so we're all in poverty, and said, hey, Sticks, you want to come over and be a refugee here? What do you think I would do? I'd spend the whole time fomenting how to get back at them. I wouldn't want to assimilate. I would have they would be inviting me to infiltrate their country for a military purpose. And it would be really helpful to me, actually. I mean, I know that not everyone's going to think that way, even if it's just a small minority, but all you need is a small minority, and obviously the vetting process, even under Trump, doesn't work 100%. So it's become a problem. People need to admit that it's a problem, not get dragged down by the race, you're a bigot, far right. And that's bullshit. They know it's bullshit. You, at least secretly, you know it's bullshit. Even a lot of the social justice warriors, like in the privacy, if they're talking to one another, like in confidence, they'll admit that it's bullshit. They know it full well. They'll say, yeah, it's bullshit, but, I have feelings, basically. It's what they talk about. Now, I get to talk to all sorts of people in privacy, because people message me about all sorts of stuff. I can tell you that there's a difference between the way people speak publicly and the way they speak in private about a great many issues, including people with ideological backgrounds that you would normally not associate with that sort of private context. It happens all the time. It's common. It's probably a majority of people. It's not even a sliver of the population. It's like some white nationalist saying, oh yeah, I date Jews and I don't really care. And, I'm worried about demographics, but it shouldn't extend to the bedroom, basically. You get that sort of thing, too. Or yeah, I say homophobic things all day, but, I'm basically bisexual or something. You get this sort of stuff. It happens. It's just sort of human nature. People project a lot. So as far as Abukar goes, I mean, it would be, if he had attacked some, middle-aged dude, some muscle-bound native Vermonter who's been chugging maple syrup and so he's really amped up, Okay, maybe that would be less bad. But this was little old granny who's literally in the middle of doing charity work at the time. You couldn't get a more despicable situation. And the state government, look, they won't want to talk about it. They won't want to address the issue. They don't want people to believe there's a problem. It's like our parks service. When you ask them, hey, do we have catamounts in Vermont? Because so many people are afraid of the idea of a 6-foot-long cat slinking through the trees watching them when they take a hike, when they're here as tourists, or when they go skiing. They say, nope, no catamounts here. Now, they are objectively here, at the very least, as transplants. There was a catamount they tracked all the way from fucking Ohio that went through the state years and years ago. They had a tracker on it. It went all the way through Pennsylvania just to get here to Vermont, wandered around, and I think went south down to Virginia or something. So at least in a transient manner, yeah, there are catamounts, but they're never going to admit that. They don't want to scare the tourists. Don't rock the boat, status quo, things are good enough as is. If it ain't too broke, don't fix it. That's sort of the New England way. And I think it's going to become a problem. Our saving grace is that we're so rural here that it's like you can't really get at least city-type crime that you get in other communities. It can't exist here because there's no fucking city for it to go to. Like Burlington and Rutland are the closest thing, and it's basically small-town America. That's about all. Peace out.